Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, Pakistani nation and its valiant armed forces are sacrificing to root out menace of terrorism from the last 2 decades. But unfortunately, some of the neighboring countries are fueling it. United Nations, even United States of America, including international media, international community, and lots of think tanks are convinced that Afghanistan becomes the hub of international terrorist organizations. Now these terrorist organizations are inflicting terrorism upon the neighboring countries, particularly Pakistan. At least 23 terrorist organizations are enjoying safe havens at the Afghan soil. 17 out of these 23 organizations are directly attacking Pakistan using not only the Afghan soil but also the latest American weapons which were left over when the withdrawal happened. These American weapons are worth $7.12 billion. It was also authenticated by the United States House Committee on Foreign Affairs, and they have revealed that these American weapons are unfortunately used by lots of terrorist organizations, particularly the banned entities attacking Pakistan. To discuss all these important questions and apprehensions, we have in our studios Syed Ijaz. She is the senior analyst. Along with her, Dr. Wasim Ishaq, a senior analyst as well. And we are also going to join Brigadier Retired Hamid Rashid Malik online, so most welcome to you, sir, as well. First question, Syed. According to the international community, the House Committee on Foreign Affairs of the United States and international media, there are lots of reports that Afghanistan is using terrorism and the banned outfits, particularly, as a tool of its foreign policy. Is it correct?
I think first we have to see the historical background, what actually happened in Afghanistan and why it is also there is a very dark history of Afghanistan when it comes to terrorist organizations, when it comes to spreading unrest not within their neighbors and and to the within the region, not only to the region, even to the globe. Now this has been established by the recent report published by the, which is a fact-based report. Nobody can deny it, the UN Security Committee's report. Now let's come to the point that whether there are heavens. I think that when you talk about the ideological alliances, there are very strong ideological alliances, and that's the reason that the Afghan current regime of Afghan Taliban in Afghanistan is not getting international recognition as well, because of their extremist and terrorist approach towards life, towards implementation, political views, and which they are very strongly implementing in Afghanistan as well. So I think it's very unfortunate that they are not understanding that whether though they have achieved their political target, but it needs certain grounds, certain they have
but
to.
But Sarah, ultimately these are the entities, these are not the states, these are not the nation states, these are not the countries actually, these are the entities, and these entities are banned outfits who have taken refuge at the Afghan soil. Dr. Wasim, when we are talking about these reports, as Syed also suggested, 53 countries are actually suffering because of these terrorist organizations, and they have taken refuge in Afghanistan.
The biggest issue is that when the United States decided to leave Afghanistan through an agreement with the Afghan Taliban, what was the situation prevailing at that time? I think more than 200,000 strong NATO and US forces, they failed to actually eliminate terrorism. So they left Afghanistan in a security vacuum. While when Taliban entered, there was hardly any security organization available. But that since Taliban themselves have been professing use of hard power to advance their then internal policy, so when they came into power, eventually they actually described the affiliation with those terrorist organizations as their offshoots. They have not declared it, but they have demonstrated it. So since last 2 years, we have seen resurgence of terrorism in Pakistan by about 500 times. And all those investigations have revealed that either they were Afghanis or they were the sponsored Afghanis. So, in that context, it is empirically proved that Afghan government implicitly is involved in sort of terrorism which is happening in Pakistan.
So, what it means when 23 terrorist outfits are enjoying safe havens in Afghanistan and interim authority doing nothing on that?
Okay. The non-state actors, they had a refuge inside Afghanistan even during the jihad time as well as during last 20 years, especially when war on terrorism was on. So, now since there is no functioning Afghan government inside Kabul, and whatever it is not an inclusive government.
Means those were there as well, because we were paying the brunt of that during Ashraf Ghani and the Karzai governments as well.
We had similar problems with them, and despite that NATO was present inside Afghanistan, still they were able to marginally control it.
Means there is no change in Afghanistan.
The situation has rather worsened, because now those non-state actors have the political as well as ideological affiliations with the sitting Afghan authority. So, in that context, both are drawing leverage from each other. So, I think the situation has gone further graver, and the Afghan security forces have rather crumbled, and their whatever is available is only for the security of maybe Kabul, Jalalabad, Kandahar, the urban centers. And beyond that, since the government is also not inclusive and the security presence is also not there, that has created a large security vacuum which is being exploited by these non-state actors currently.
So, why this question is that we take Brigadier Retired Hamid as well. Brigadier Retired Hamid, when we are talking about rooting out terrorism from not only from Pakistan but also from the region, but some of the countries including Afghanistan are the hurdles, and they are not doing enough on that. Even 17 of the terrorist outfits, they have taken refuge. Not only that, but also inflicting terrorism upon Pakistan.
Faisal, we need to realize that after Doha agreement, it was hoped that this time the Islamic Emirate state of Afghan Taliban would be more democratic in nature, would bring peace to the region and especially in Afghanistan, and these non-state terrorist organizations will not be given any safe havens, and Afghan soil will not be used for terrorism across the border. But what we have experienced, and the United Nations Security Report also reveals, that it is the same old wine in new bottle, that the Afghan Taliban, instead of bringing peace and trying that Afghan soil is not being used for cross-border terrorism, they are providing enabling environment to these non-state actors, these terrorist organizations, and these terrorist organizations are not conducting terrorist act in Pakistan but in the region also. The Central Asian states are also bearing the brunt of it, and so much so that even in the Uyghur region of Chinese, the terrorism organizations are trying to have their footprints. While China along with Pakistan tried that the trilateral talks which were held in May also, that Afghan government, especially the Afghan Taliban, should be sensitized, that they should act sensibly, and they should also be mindful of their promises which were made in Doha agreement.
Brigadier Hamid, who will sensitize them? Who will give them the advice that they have to act wisely? They have to act wisely in a sense that the world should recognize them as a legitimate government. But these still that is the interim authority, and nobody is ready to recognize them. Who is going to give them the lesson to act as a responsible state rather than to be a group?
This is $1 million question presently, because during the bilateral talks and in the trilateral talks, in which China was also an important party, they were trying to realize that peace and stability in Afghanistan is not in their favor only, but for the region and for their fast-paced development and for betterment of their people. But I think because of their myopic approach and their extremist thought that their ideology should not only prevail in Afghanistan, but in the region. And I think this United Nations Security Report is eye-opener for America, for the Europe also, and now it should be a global response which should be generated. And Pakistan, I think, is very wisely trying to make the region understand that Afghanistan is not only problem for Pakistan, it is not only problem for BRI or CPEC, it is problem for the safety and security of human beings in this region.
Your point well taken, Dr. Wasim. If you just elaborate that Pakistan during Operation Zarb-e-Azb and soon after the Operation al-Fasaad, most of the terrorist outfits or the sleeper cells were all destroyed, and there was a complete calm. Even very few terrorist incidents were there. But since Taliban took over, these attacks were on rise. So how do you see this aspect? Because right now our security forces are engaged in every nook and corner regarding terrorism.
Pakistan Army was fighting active war against terrorism. The TTP active operations during 2007 and 2013, in those eras, TTP had safe havens across the border into the bordering regions of Pakistan.
3 to 4 provinces in Afghanistan.
Yes, Paktia, Paktika, Kunnar and Nuristan. So these provinces were otherwise exploited by India and their raw agencies as a launchpad against Pakistan. So when Pakistan Army defeated the TTP, they went into those safe havens and then went underground. But those launch pads existed then and even when the Taliban took over, and those launch pads are available even today. So these safe havens were never destroyed across the border either by the NATO forces or by the incumbent Afghan government or Afghan authority. So what has happened that those were sort of sleeper cells. They got activated when they got the ideological affiliation as well as a sort of political backing. So there is no denying the fact that this could be a leverage as a tool to extend its foreign policy and certain foreign policy decisions to be affected by the use of terrorism. And since Pakistan is the only country.
So do you think that Afghanistan right now using these terrorist outfits as a leverage to inflict terrorism upon Pakistan?
Yes, I feel it from two aspects. One, that it has demonstrated that it does not have a political will to root out those terrorisms and does not have the military capacity to root out terrorism. So on both these accounts, the incumbent Afghan authority has failed to promise those promises which they made to the international community. And those promises were repeated during this year only at 3 occasions: trilateral summit in Islamabad, quadrilateral summit in Samarkand, and also the recent one, Kazan summit.
Yes.
So all the Russia, China, Pakistan and the regional countries are really worried about the resurgence of terrorism from Afghanistan. So it is not only affecting Pakistan, it is affecting Afghanistan itself and also the region. So now the global community, especially the regional players, are on one format to convince the Taliban government that they have to do something.
So Saira, when we are talking about these political formats which are already evolved in the region, like China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, trilateral, and then we have the Moscow format as well. Do you think that these formats, these negotiations, diplomatic efforts, particularly the Doha agreement, all of them are failed and Afghan interim authorities are not ready to adhere anything?
I think it would be too harsh or it would be too pessimistic to say that those international forums or those agreements have been failed so far, though results are not that positive and the Afghan current regime is not paying heed to it. But what other options do we have? Multilateral pressure is a must now, is more than ever important for, to make Afghan Taliban realize their importance and their role in the regional stability and for their own sake. As Dr. Saab also mentioned, that they have to pay heed to their internal problems. They have to pay importance and heed to, legitimization, importance of legitimization at global level. Otherwise, wars is not a very rare phenomena.
Okay.
They can come back to them.
Obviously. When we are talking about these different terrorist outfits, like BRAS, the umbrella organization of Baloch Liberation Organization and BLA and all that, has connections with TTP, the banned outfits. Then they have allegiance with the Afghan Taliban giving them not only the refuge but also training, facilities, and from where the finances also coming. They are there in Afghanistan, and we have already the apprehensions that our eastern neighbor is fueling terrorism from Afghan soil. So how do you see, because it seems that they are all one against Pakistan?
As I highlighted earlier also, that the bordering regions of Afghanistan were used as launch pads by Indian intelligence agencies against Pakistan. those launch pads were giving a different sort of treatment to BLA and different sort of treatment to TTP. But till then, there was hardly any nexus which was proved empirically between TTP and BLA. But what we are witnessing that since last 2 years, when the Afghan Taliban Interim Authority took over, we have seen sort of nexus between the BLA actions and TTP actions, because the moment something happens in KPK, at the same time of the same severity happens in Balochistan, or maybe one after the other. So these are those nexus which probably it appears to be, or maybe the Afghan authority does not have any control now over those non-state actors. So that's why it is unable to control them. Secondly, the involvement of the eastern borders, our eastern neighbors, intelligence agencies cannot be ruled out even today, because they need logistics, they need training, and they need finances. And that's the only one which has always been available to finance such non-state actors which are involved in terrorism inside Pakistan.
Okay, your point well taken. Brigadier Retired Hamid, one question arises here that whether a couple of years back United States and rest of the coalition forces left this whole these arms and ammunition and vehicles and all that deliberately over there?
At the time of withdrawal of these forces, Pakistan raised this point, and Pakistan was very of the fact that these weapons which are being left behind will be falling in the hands of terrorists. And in the Doha agreement also, the Afghan government transition was agreed to be graduated, but what happened on ground, it was a sheer fall of then Afghan government, and Taliban emerged as a victorious entity and took over the country. Pakistan did try again to have diplomatic relationship with the government in Afghanistan and tried to make them sensitize that they need to control these weapons falling into the hands of the terrorists. But what we have experienced that the BLA, the attack in Zone with these weapons, and also the Afghan suicide bombers, about 17 bombers were of Afghan national, and also the tirade of irresponsible and, I must say, antagonizing statements by the Afghan authorities is basically the problem. They are having, if we say that they have the ideological, some semblance and also some relation with the TTP, but when it comes to BLA, there is no ideological as such combination or bond with the BLA and Afghan Taliban. It is mere terrorism, and it is mere money and financing which may, I think Dr. Wasim has been very candid in saying that the Indian RAW and intelligence agencies may be fueling this terrorism. They are providing them the finances which are required for the purchase of weapons, for recruitment of the terrorists. And I think this nexus of Afghan Taliban and providing them safe weapons, providing them training camps, providing them the weapons, the world should also take a notice of it.
Okay, your point well taken. Dr. Wasim, if I ask this question, the same question to you, that this was deliberate by the United States and the coalition forces, that it left that a huge quantity of arms and ammunition over there, including the high-tech vehicles, helicopters and all that. So whether it is going to be any sort of a strategy that to sell arms to any other country to have some examination over here in the form of terrorism and all that?
There was a deliberate attempt by the United States to leave Afghanistan. But why they did it in haste? Because just follow the events starting from USA pivot to Asia of 2012. After the Hillary Clinton gave this strategy, the United States wanted to finish this forever wars and immediately move and reposition troops from here to East Asia against China containment. And immediately after that, we have seen in 2017 there was a US national security strategy, where the terrorism was not now the number one national security priority. It went down, I think, 6 or 7 number, and great power competition with China and Russia became the number one. So therefore, now the US grand strategy for this region became actually containment of China. So United States was in a hurry to relocate its troops from Afghanistan and Iraq and host of Middle East and reposition them in East Asia. However, the taking of those material and vehicles and ammunition, etc., that was not the priority because they had sufficient ammunition. So, in haste, when they went, this was then eventually fell into the hands of the Taliban and the non-state actors. And since the Taliban government was not actually overarching government in the entire Afghanistan, and there is hardly any federal system in Afghanistan even now. So, there was a tribal system, whosoever was able to snatch whatever, it went into their hands. So, withdrawal was a deliberate, leaving aside those weapons and equipment and ammunition. This was not required by the United States for East Asia repositioning. So, therefore, it eventually fell into the hands of certain state actors and majority of the non-state
So,
actors.
they don't even know that this is going to be in the hands of Afghan Taliban or their allegiance terrorist organizations.
At that time, they did not calculate that it will go into the hands of non-state actors.
And even
this is my research.
Even their intelligence reports suggest nothing about that.
No.
When we are talking about these illegal foreigners, that is okay, because Pakistan has taken a decision and now the implementation is going on. When we are talking about the Afghan citizen card holders, who were approximately 0.7 million of the people are living in Pakistan, and they are also involved in illegal activities. So, how do you see that phenomena? What would be the ultimate future of those?
Let me highlight that no country in the world can ever accept anybody who is non-national doing any sort of illegal activity into that mainland country. So, what is happening in Pakistan, that Afghanistan, we are hosting them since last 40 years, despite our being so much facilitation for in all domains.
Yes,
they have been root cause of terrorism inside Pakistan. So, now we have to first of all implement strict visa regime as it is happening in all other countries.
Definitely.
And see if can any illegal Pakistani enter in Afghanistan, and what will be the treatment with him?
Definitely.
Just anticipate.
Yes.
So,
we are
in
witnessing.
the same case, we enforce strict visa regime. All those passport holders should only come through a proper visa, and all those who do not have all such documents must be repatriated forthwith. And even those registered Afghanis who are in the refugee status, we need to do screening a lot, and we have to do it at a fast pace, so that all those who are involved in such criminal activities inside Pakistan should be repatriated, and thereafter enforce very, very strict border monitoring mechanism, when they should not be allowed to re-enter in Pakistan.
Definitely.
So,
well
this
elaborated.
is our national
well elaborated.
security
Brigadier
issue.
Retired Hamid, why Afghan interim authority is reluctant to have decisive action against all those terrorist outfits residing or enjoying safe havens at the Afghan soil?
The answer is very simple, is that either they have the capacity not to take action against the outfits, and second is already highlighted the gray area in their ideology. At the both aspects, they need to understand that their inaction is breeding frustration among their regional neighbors. It is not Pakistan. China also feel very that for their CPAC, for their BRI, Afghanistan has to be a responsible government. They need to ensure peace and stability not within their borders, but also ensure that no act of cross-border terrorism takes place from their side. Here I would like to say that Afghan Taliban government in Afghanistan, it is not about the capacity also. What I have assessed and researched, that any terrorist act to take place, there is a lot of preparation has to take place apart from financing, recruitment, provision of weapons and safe haven, and also their...
Brigadier Retired Hamid, when we are talking about capacity, it's okay that we understand that the Afghan interim authority don't have much capacity to act against all those, but the thing is whether they have political will to do that?
Surely they don't have the political will also. And if we talk of capacity, let me highlight that out of 23 terrorist organizations working in Afghanistan, only one is being kept under a very strict crackdown by the Afghan Taliban, and that is IS Khorasan. Why? Because the ideology of IS Khorasan is not matching with the ideology of the Taliban. And Taliban have also restrictions on al-Qaeda and other outfits that they will not have any terrorist act against the US or allies of the US. Now,
and rest of the 22 terrorist organizations are in sync with Afghan interim government, interim authority.
We see this aspect, then we come to realize it is not the matter of capacity. If they can take action and they can kill the leaders and they can punish the terrorists of the IS Khorasan, why can't they take these action against the TTP? Why can't they take this action against the other terrorist organization? So what I think that the double standards are being kept by the Afghan Taliban, and this hurts Pakistan more.
Your point well taken, Brigadier Sahib. Dr. Wasim, when we are talking about the capacity or the political will, if the political will would be there with Kabul, then I think so that neighboring countries are going to help Afghanistan in that count to counter terrorism. How do you see that aspect?
You see, this Kazan summit is very, very specific in terms of ensuring, getting the assurances from the Afghan Taliban about the stability and peace and not using its territory for cross-border terrorism.
And also the assurance of the regional cooperation on terrorism as well.
Exactly. So, Russia, China, and of course all the regional countries, they are actively involved and they are very much worried because ETIM has been targeting China,
East Turkestan Islamic
IMU has been targeting the Central Asian countries and
yes.
TTP over here. So, these three organizations have been very active, and the resurgence of these organizations is a real point of concern for all these major powers as well as the neighboring countries. So, now how they are approaching?
Do you not think that the Afghan interim authority using these terrorist organizations as leverage to the regional countries, and Afghan interim authority is used by some international powers to have leverage in the region?
On first aspect, when the Afghan Taliban took over Kabul, probably they thought it's so easy to govern a country. But as they progressed, this is my research, they thought probably they need a higher statecraft than they possessed. So, as they gradually started learning the statecraft, the security situation which was already volatile and the security vacuum which was created because of the NSAF forces, they were incapable of even handling at that time. So, they became almost incapable of performing. So, they were facing now two-front dilemma, the political stability and the security stability. So, on both accounts they failed to perform in last 2 years, but gradually they have realized, and gradually Russia and China have engaged now with the interim Afghan government. They have pledged them with a lot of economic investment and economic incentives, and they have realized that unless they prove to be a responsible game player in the region, probably that the economic problems and security problems and the political recognition will be then far beyond the reality. So, that is why we have seen the Afghan government first ambassador has gone to China. We have seen about $10 billion agreement by the Chinese mineral companies with the Afghan government, and we have also seen lot of stakes in terms of CASA 1000, TAPI and CPAC, which Afghan government is desperate to be part of all those things. So, now they are at a point where they have realized, and my research also indicates that they have arrested about 200 TTP activists just to show a sort of sincerity to Pakistan that they are committed towards arresting these TTPs. But whatever has happened is a good start. We need to encourage them and we need to support in terms of their capacity building if there is a capacity issue.
Pakistan is supporting all along the Afghan interim authority.
But they have now demonstrated a political.
The problem is that Afghans are not ready to support Pakistan on that account.
At a political level, they have demonstrated.
When we are talking about these terrorist outfits, United Nations keep on stressing upon the Kabul to take decisive action against all those terrorist outfits, never be a threat to the regional countries, and also respect Doha Agreement.
Actually, we need to understand that except the political will and the requirement for all that, we should not forget the ideological alliance. Their approach, their ideology, which is very extremist, they are like, and never forget that after the fall of Kabul, the TTP, entire TTP gave their full obedience to the Akhundzada, the head of the Habatullah Akhundzada. So, we should not forget these dynamics when it comes to look at their cooperation and their reluctance in handling all these, be it TTP.
I am getting sense that you intend to talk that as Afghan interim authority not respecting the Doha agreement.
Yes.
That's why they are not respecting even what the United Nations said.
Yes, they are more concerned about their ideology, because with the help of those who actually supported them to reach to this level, how can they, you know, not support them?
As they don't want to take responsibility on the girls' education, women rights and all that.
Same. And I guess we need to, and I'm telling you that this thing will be, you know, they will land in a difficult situation. By how long Pakistan will tolerate all this? How long? China has great stakes and great interest in Afghanistan when it comes to infrastructure development and minerals and their resources. They are not getting the sense that the major powers, be it Russia, be it you know, China, they are highly interested in you know, investing there.
Okay, your point well taken. Brigadier retired Hamid, when we are talking about Pakistan's defense forces are making immense sacrifices, whole of the Pakistani nation doing a lot, so against terrorism and all that. So how this menace of terrorism would be rooted out, because some of the countries, including Afghanistan and India, they are fueling it.
If we see the history of success made by the Pakistan Defense Forces, our law enforcement agencies, and especially Pakistan Army, we have a very good record of success against terrorism in Operation al-Fasaad as well as Operation Zarb-e-Azb and Radd. And we have seen that the terrorist attack were almost marginalized, and the terrorists were made to run from Pakistan territory, and they had to hide in Afghanistan. And in that case, the statistics also show that the successes and the sacrifices made by Pakistan Army and Pakistani nation, being a very resilient nation, even the globe has to appreciate Pakistan's effort. And what we see in 2020, only 49 terrorist attacks were registered in comparison to the 379 plus attacks registered this year. So I think, and I am very hopeful, that Pakistan Army and law enforcement agencies will again come up to the challenge, and they will not only defeat TTP, but they will also ensure peace and stability in our borders. What we have seen that about 26 kilometers of border with Afghanistan has been fenced. The 13 crossing point and 2 mainly, that is Chaman and Khyber, now have proper documentation of the people entering into Pakistan, and about 400 unregistered illegal immigrants to Pakistan has been sent back to Afghanistan successfully. And also that the Pakistan has made certain changes in the Afghan transit trade, and also the smuggling of dollars going to Afghanistan. All these efforts are
so Brigadier Hamid, can the regional countries convince Afghanistan to root out terrorism from its soil and don't pour it into the neighboring countries? Also, that if Afghanistan do this thing, then the regional countries are going to help regarding economy, trade and all that. Otherwise, it would be a bit impossible. So do you think that it should be conditional like that?
Surely, and I am totally with you that firstly, there should be the diplomatic efforts. They should make utmost diplomatic maneuver so that Afghan government realizes their follies. They also realizes what is not being done by them to satisfy the regional neighbors. And if this doesn't is enough to make them realize about their responsibilities as a peaceful neighbor and also not allowing their side for the cross-border terrorism, the regional countries should take pragmatic and prudent steps also. And some sort of punitive measure should also be taken against this Taliban government, as was taken earlier. Certain section was leveled by the globe, by the international community. And this time also, if they are not going to pay heed to Pakistan concern and to the concerns of the neighbors, the regional powers, especially Russia and China, along with Pakistan, Iran, and Central Asian states, should come up to a joint declaration of sanctions against Afghanistan to make them also realize that the economic worsening of condition in Afghanistan is not to their favor.
Your point well taken, Dr. Wasim. Afghanistan wants recognition of the international community, international world. Do you think that it is possible when Kabul exporting terrorism in region and beyond?
In the current form, it is not possible, because the basic agreement was Doha agreement, from where this government was formed, and they have not only violated Doha agreement, they have violated all their promises which they made on women rights, on governance, and on especially on the aspect of terrorism. So, but gradually they have realized, and gradually the regional great powers like Russia, China, they have got engaged, and they have made them realize their responsibilities as a responsible regional country, where they have to govern and then succeed. And all these countries want that this current Afghan authority should succeed. That is why China has given a lot of space to Afghan interim government. So, now they have to demonstrate in a physical terms, not only notionally, that they have become responsible. In that case, especially from the Pakistan's perspective, because we have sacrificed a lot for them, and we have a lot of stakes in the stability of Afghanistan. So, therefore, we have reached to a state of stalemate, where there is a prisoner's dilemma, where both countries are not talking to each other, but they are talking to through press conferences or through other media channels.
So, do you think that this prisoner's dilemma is going to end?
Yes, they have to decide on both sides that they have to get involved into a constructive engagement through diplomacy. So, that is the first step which they have to move forward and move fast. And thereafter, I also suggest that they should have hotline amongst the militaries and amongst the intelligence agencies to actually information sharing, and as well as to root out terrorism whenever it is identified. So, now the rooting out of terrorism has to be taken over jointly by both Pakistan and Afghan militaries, and that is where it will give a trust building on both sides, and will also eliminate any chances of safe havens to TTP or other terrorist organizations which are operating inside Pakistan. So, and lastly, they have to also at a fast pace ensure the repatriation of those illegal Afghan people or illegal any other country's people at a fast track, and make sure that whosoever comes to Pakistan, it has to be through a visa process, and nobody should be entertained in Pakistan.
Lawful, legitimate documentation,
yes.
No doubt. Saira, what you suggest that what Pakistan has to do right now, because as Dr. Wasim suggested, that diplomacy and negotiation, that is very important. But on the other hand, Pakistan is fighting a war against terrorism. So, how Pakistan can compel or advise Afghan interim authority to have to root out this terrorism from their soil, and we should work jointly to root out this terrorism, because this is inflicting pain across the region.
Exactly, I agree, but let us see, actually Pakistan is right now at a very critical juncture, because our elections are just on the are just the corner. So, how can we afford such non-secure situation around it? Our now election rallies are going to be there. We cannot afford this fragile and volatile security situation in Pakistan when we are having an elections. So, and these terrorist organizations, these elections and such events are very soft corners for these terrorist organizations. So, it is even more critical and important for Pakistan to handle and to take this issue on priority issue as a priority issue. And again, three things: diplomatic engagement, international multilateral pressure, and intelligence based operations.
Definitely, your point well taken. Brigadier retired Hamid Rashid Malik Sahab, thank you very much for your presence online. Thank you very much, Saira Ijaz, being with us. Thank you very much, Dr. Wasim, for being with us here in the studios. Viewers, as we all know, and as our panelists suggested, as United Nations, international community, and whole of the world is suggesting that Afghanistan interim authority must have to take decisive action against all those terrorist organization outfits who have taken refuge at the Afghan soil, because maintaining peace in the region will ultimately develop coherence among the regional countries, and this will lead to development and prosperity. This is today's Foresight. It's time to sign off. Allah Hafiz wa Nasir.